There's studies that have been shown that show that even in the medical profession, it's believed that people of color can take more pain. That literally there's more pain. That dates back to slavery. That was in science textbooks. That literally like people of color, black people in particular, can take more pain. That was a belief within our system of education and everything. And you can almost see that through what's happening in our communities, through our tears and our pain, because I've been working together with Parkland students. I have some ties in Florida as well, and working with students in Chicago. And I noticed immediately when it was communities who are mostly wealthy, mostly white, it's like the pain is felt. It's the pain is significant, is seen, and it's important. But something about our communities where I see our youth having to fight and with the help and support of students like Parkland, which is beautiful, but literally needing support to get the rest of the world to understand that the everyday shootings they have to see and go right back to school after their friend was killed is just as painful. Like literally having to convince society that we can't take more pain, that we can't take this no more, that we are not any less human beings, that we can't take the pain. Even the narrative about Mike Brown being seen as super strong and like a super monster, Tamir Rice being seen as way older than he is, like these narratives that literally lead to the desensitizing of seeing black people in pain and being marginalized and brutalized, and how there's just this symptom that we don't have that we have some type of higher mental capacity to resist PTSD somehow, or like we just have some magical powers that are going to keep us from not hurting and needing a break or a counselor after our friend was slaughtered. Like it's just something that is in our society, in the fabric, and it's time to challenge it in a large way, across race, across class. It's time to end that thing that started all the way back since enslavement.
Profound. What about the Democratic Party? I mean, like. So, because, well, I'm saying like nationally, it seems like the gravest threat is Russian Twitter bots and things like that. Russian Twitter bots, Trump paying off Playboy models and all this stuff. That's all we hear. National media, National Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi, Rahm Emanuel, love each other. And you would think the Democratic Party, Bobby Kennedy, back in the day, he seemed to be advocating for really breaking a lot of what we're seeing now. I don't know if it was legitimate or not, but he was killed. But the Democratic Party has gone to the point where they catered for black votes during the primaries, and now, I mean, people are getting shot like it's a video game here, and the National Party, as well as I'm sure locally here, isn't doing much.
Yeah. So, Will, did you want to respond? Because I know you got to go. No, you good? So what I'll go ahead and say, this is interesting that you actually brought this point up. This past primary, I participated as in the field operations department for J.B. Pritzker, who is one of the gubernatorial. He's a Democratic nominee in the state of Illinois. This gubernatorial election is going down as one of the most expensive gubernatorial elections in American history. He's a billionaire. Our current governor is a billionaire. Long story short, he picked a young black woman to run as his lieutenant governor. So of course, as I was doing research for the campaign, I'm like, yeah, this is good. Let me go in. As I went in, I realized that the things that we are combating externally in the Democratic Party, we can't say, so for example, we can't say we want to do away with sexism, but we're okay with a little bit of racist talk inside of the Democratic Party. There were wiretaps that were released, and basically he was speaking in a very racially insensitive way. I left the campaign in a very public way and went to work for a progressive candidate, Samina Mustafa, in the 5th Congressional District. What I learned in that moment is that we are in a time where we didn't get to a Trump America by overt racism. We got there by subtle nuances of racism. And the way that we combat that in the Democratic Party is to say that we are no longer going to accept this from candidates. We don't care if we're in the middle of a primary. We're not going to accept this from candidates, and we're not going to work for and support candidates just because it's the popular thing to do or because they have the most money or what have you, which was none of my motivation for being on the Pritzker campaign. But I started to realize as I was talking to constituents in the area that I was working in, which is the West Side, which is the area I'm from, he does not speak to the values of the people, the working class people in my neighborhood. It doesn't matter where you go in the United States of America, the values of working class people are the same all over this country. And so how is it that a billionaire can understand what a mother of 2 kids who's working 2 jobs is dealing with on the south side or the west side of the city of Chicago or in Cahokia, Illinois? And so I think like there's a lot of work that we have to do internally, and it's going to be required for us to blow the whistle essentially on a lot of these candidates.
And yeah, I want to touch on too with this, with the Democratic Party, Lord. So one thing that I definitely see, like for instance, locally here in Chicago, almost every single one of our majority black wards has a black alderman or alderperson. It's not black and white, like, so to speak here. It's not that. That allows you to see a little deeper. And like being on the Poor People's Campaign and really looking deeply into Dr. King. See, Dr. King came to Chicago because he wanted to help with the housing discrimination. He wanted to bring some of that energy from the civil rights movement down south. But when he got here, he got shook because he had to meet a machine that he had never seen before. He was met by black people in power. And before he could even absorb the fact that he was meeting black people in power, they were already betraying him and saying, we don't need you here. They had already been sent with an agenda and a message. And Dr. King was not prepared to deal with that type of dynamic because the whole narrative was, if we could just get black people in these seats, if we could just get people who look like us in these seats, we'll be straight. Well, guess what? In Chicago, in our majority black wards that are divested, food deserts, schools closing, we have black leadership. And so it's time for us to dig deeper. That's why I appreciate what our revolution is saying and those types of things, because it's time for us to go beyond just that old narrative of like, if we just have somebody that looks like me, because capitalism has no color, neoliberalism has no color. There's all types of versions of it out here now, everywhere you look. And so basically when we come and we say that we want better, we have to start demanding and raising the bar on that and saying, you can't just come up in here and tell yo, I used to grow up on this block story. And that's enough. Because what policies do you support? Are you rubber stamping stuff that's closing down stuff in our communities? Are you off thinking that it's not the fact that resources are being redistributed, but it's about the fact the Cop Academy is going to cost too much? You know what I'm saying? Like, where's your head at? And I think that's going to be super important. Recently, No Cop Academy youth went to a Block Alderman's Caucus meeting, and they went to that meeting to say and demand an outcry, as Anthony touched on, the PTSD, the trauma. We need resources. We want schools. We need jobs, like demands that should be made of your elected officials. And they were told, shut up, straight up. And then were told by their elected officials that they were messing with some gangsters. Some gangsters. Well, you know what? Y'all are some gangsters. Okay, because y'all here embezzling, taking, stealing, not taking. Oh, y'all some gangsters, all right, okay? And it's time for us to deal with that. And I think it's time to break free. I think Chicago, along with some other cities who are in similar situations, St. Louis, Detroit, this is a time for us to be real, that is not just about any kind of blue, no matter who type mess. Because we are living under the destruction of that narrative. So I think it's time for us to really deal with that.